Hello, friends and fellow lovers of all things beachy. Welcome to The Beach Speaks, the podcast that shares stories about the beach and our connection to it. I'm your host and beach lover, Paige Friend, helping you reconnect with the beach, return to your soul, and reimagine your life. So grab a cool drink, relax in your beach chair, stick your toes in the sand, and enjoy this episode of The Beach Speaks. Hey, beach lover. One cannot collect all the beautiful shells on the beach. One can only collect a few. One moon shell is more impressive than three. There is only one moon in the sky. Anne Mara Lindbergh, Gift from the Sea. It's hard to think about going to the beach and not wanting to take a little something with you to remember being there. It's like the shore has this magnetic pull, urging you to pick up a seashell or some other treasure and take it home. But what if you found out that if you took that little piece of the beach, you would be cursed? My guest today, Jenny Paul, has a story about that. What did she collect at the beach that could possibly be cursed? What happened? Hey, Jenny, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
I know we've been talking about doing this for a while, and we're finally doing it.
I know. It's great. It's been so great to think about all the ways that I connect with the beach, and I love listening to your podcast and this idea that we all should live at the beach if we can and should seek the shoreline.
Yeah, you're a beach girl at heart. And so I guess I will ask the question that I ask all my guests in the beginning is, how is the beach speaking to you today?
I collect sand. I have taken a little handful of sand from almost every beach I've ever visited. And it's just something that started when I was a kid. I used to go to the Jersey Shore in South Jersey with my family whenever we could get away. And the Jersey Shore is not the most gorgeous beach in the world. You know, the sand is kind of dull, grayish, brownish, beige, and the water is really murky. You can't even see your feet if you're standing there. But, you know, it's rejuvenating and fun in its way, and people love it. And, you know, my whole family's from the Philadelphia area. We grew up, since my parents were kids, they grew up going down to the Jersey Shore. We all went to the shore. And when I was about in high school, my family took a vacation to Bermuda. And Bermuda has these pink sand beaches. It is like nothing I had ever seen. And the water is beautiful, crystal clear blue. And you can see your feet if you're standing in that water. And every gift shop that you go into sells like a little bottle of pink sand. And I thought to myself, like, well, what if I just take a little handful and put it in my own little decorative bottle when I get home? And so I did that, and that is how it started. And ever since then, every beach I visited, I just took a little tiny handful of sand, brought it home, put it in a little bottle. And I went to Costa Rica, where there's Playa Conchal. It is a beach that's made out of like tiny shells broken up and churned in the water so that they're really soft and smooth, and you can walk on these like broken up bits of shells, and they glisten in the sun, and it is so beautiful. And I went to Israel on a big trip once and took some sand from the desert that was like perfectly dry, powdery sand and very smooth. And every beach I visited, I took some sand. And all of this came to a breaking point when my best friend announced that she was getting married in Hawaii. I live on the Northeast coast. I had never been somewhere so far as Hawaii. And I thought, my husband and I went together and we thought, if we're going to Hawaii, like, let's do it right. So we did a whirlwind 10 days and we went to Kauai. Kauai has the Nepali coast, which is 17 miles of like coastline with the tallest sea cliffs in the world. And you can't really access it unless you hike there or you approach by sea or by air. You can helicopter in, but that's a little too fancy for us. So we heard that you could take a kayak trip on the open ocean. You kayak the 17-mile coast and you stop at Nepali Beach and you like have a little bit of a break and a little bit of a snack or lunch, and then you keep going another 5 miles. And once you start, they check in to make sure you're okay. And then they say, like, this is your last chance. You cannot be airlifted out of here unless it's an emergency, and exhaustion does not count as an emergency. So here we are. We're going, we're doing it. And we get to the Nepali beach, and there are like 2 seals, a mom and a baby seal sleeping on the beach. And there's goats up in the cliffside, and we stop and we get lunch. And I just had to have a little bit of that sand. So I took a little bit of sand from my sand collection, tucked it away inside my waterproof pouch, and then we kept going and slept the whole next day because we were exhausted from that. And then we went to Poipu Beach, which is on the south coast of Kauai, these golden sands. It's supposedly like the star of all of Kauai's south shore. And we went to Glass Sand Beach, which is in an industrial part of Kauai. Basically, a recycling plant had gotten devastated in a storm, and all of the glass bottles had gone out to sea and churned and churned and churned to create this beach that's made out of glass pebbles. And I just had to have a little bit of glass sand. And then we went from Kauai to the Big Island. We spent a day in Volcanoes National Park and went to Black Sand Beach, where the sand is extremely fine, glistening. It's almost like table salt, but black. And it's beautiful. But the real exciting thing about the Big Island that we couldn't wait to go to was Green Sand Beach. You basically drive to the southernmost tip of the United States, as far south as you can go, and then you keep going. And we had rented a 4x4, and we did everything, we read all this research, and we planned this whole day. We packed our snacks, and we were ready to go. And we got to the part where we're supposed to take the road to go to Green Sand Beach, and there are these barricades, and it says, like, no driving past this point, do not enter. And we just looked at each other like, what are we rented a 4x4 for this purpose. We're here for this. Like, what are we supposed to do now? And we're sitting there deciding what to do, what should we do? And this was kind of before there were cell phones, and we would have had no service down there anyway. And suddenly in the distance, we saw a Jeep kind of like bouncing off of the rugged terrain. And we thought, oh, somebody else is driving up ahead. Like, we should just go for it. So we drove. I think it's only maybe 2 miles, but it is so rocky and so bumpy. I've never been on a road like that. And we sort of thought maybe we're in trouble a couple of times, like maybe our car won't even make it through. And then you reach this cliffside, and the whole beach is sunken down. It's all made of this glistening olive green sand, which is up against like a bright blue water. It is the most stunning, breathtaking thing you've ever seen. And of course, I had to have a little tiny handful of green sand, took it with me, and we swam in the water and we enjoyed the afternoon there. And then we came back, and that night we flew to Oahu for my friend's wedding. She got married in a very small ceremony on the beach where her now husband, grew up surfing. We met in the parking lot. We took off our shoes. Everybody walked barefoot to the shoreline, and we stood in a semicircle around the couple, and their close friend officiated this beautiful ceremony that was very personalized and incorporated a lot of Hawaiian culture and customs. And at one point, he took a lava rock and he wrapped it up in a leaf, and I think it was a palm leaf, and offered it as a sort of blessing to the ocean. And he said, "You can never remove lava rock from Hawaii. You will be cursed." And suddenly I thought, wait a minute. I took the black sand from Black Sand Beach. I didn't know. Like, am I cursed now? Am I going to be cursed forever? And what should I do? Because, like, the black sand is definitely made out of lava rock, and I already removed it from the Big Island to Oahu, and what should I do with it now? Like, should I just keep it? Because, like, I already took it, so maybe I should just keep it, or should I leave it? And I decided, well, if I'm cursed because I already took it, so I'm just going to keep it and keep it in my private collection. And we flew back to New York City, where we lived. And the day before we went back to work, we were having serious case of the Sunday scaries, like did not want to go back to reality after this amazing trip to Hawaii. And I went into work the next day, and it turned out that I had sent an ill-advised email before I left. And my boss called me into his office and said, "I think you're fired." And I was like, "What? What happened? I don't understand." And he started to explain that I had sent this email that really I should not have sent. And we talked it through, and I had been working there a really long time, and it turned out I wasn't fired. But I decided that I needed to quit this job. And that night I went out to dinner with my good friends, and we went to my favorite restaurant called the Fat Radish that was on the Lower East Side. It's not even there anymore. And when we got there, the hostess said, like, "Hey, ladies, what are we celebrating tonight?" And I said, "Well, I just quit my job. It's kind of crazy." And she said, "Amazing! We have a spot for you at the chef's table. Follow me." And they put us in the table right off of the kitchen. And they kept passing us like free hors d'oeuvres and special dishes and the most delicious hummus you've ever tried. And I thought to myself, like, maybe I'm not cursed. Maybe I just needed a change. And boy, did I get a change.
I love so many things about that story, and I wanted you to tell it in its entirety without stopping and me interrupting at every point, because you tell that story so well. I want to know maybe you're not cursed by bringing this black sand back, but what did you find out later about keeping this sand? I think you had mentioned before that you'd done a little research.
I did, because, it made me start to think, like, I love traveling and I love visiting national parks and historic sites. And, they always say, like, leave it better than you found it, and pack in, pack out. And I believe in all of that. And for some reason in my head, like, the sand collecting is a different thing. It's not disrupt for me for some reason, but I guess when you think about it, it surely is. I mean, so I was wondering, like, is it actually legal to take sand? And when I started looking into it, it's actually really not. You're not supposed to take seashells. You're not supposed to take sand. And in fact, years and years after we were in Hawaii, they made it illegal with a very hefty fine to take sand from the Black Sand Beach and the Green Sand Beach. So, I think there's a reason, we preserve the beaches, because, as you say, the beaches speak to us and we want them to be there when we visit again and again.
Exactly. So if it's illegal, what would happen if you happen to be discovered with this black sand or green sand?
I mean, I really don't know, but I hope, like,
Well, now I think, you're grandfathered in a way. Like, you're not.
I think yes, I think
Yeah.
that the laws came into being after we visited. It is such a small amount and it's not commercialized use. So I would hope that I'm okay. But it leads to a larger existential question. I mean, I told you I grew up going to the Jersey Shore. We would like collect shopping bags full of shells, those big white clam shells, and we would paint on them and we would do art projects with them. We would spend a week, if we were lucky, if it was one of those years, we would spend a week at the Jersey Shore. And I would collect these shells and then I would try to convince my parents that we needed to bring them home, like a huge bag full of shells. And they would say, can't we leave them here? What are you going to do with them if you bring them home? All the things. And I just wanted them. I wanted a piece of the beach to remember. I mean, it's just a special memory. So hopefully the intentions are right and the impact is minimal enough that it's okay. I hope so.
Well, I think so. It makes me think, though, when we were in California making our trip down the California coast, we stopped at a beach that had purple sand.
Where's that? I need to go there.
It's called Pfeiffer Beach, and it's north of Big Sur. It's close to Big Sur, as I recall. I took some sand. I'm just thinking right now, I have a little baggie full of purple sand in a larger bag with lots of other shells and things. And so I'm wondering, but we didn't see any sign saying don't take anything. And I mean, I didn't take a mound of it or anything like you, just enough to have a memory of it. And we also went to, well, they called it Jade Beach. It really was just, on the Pacific coast, it's typically rocky. There's not those fine white beaches like you see in Hawaii or anything. It was known for jade. And we thought, oh, wow, we're going to, look for jade. Of course, we had no idea what jade really looked like, when it's in its raw form. And we were just looking for green rocks or whatever. And of course, they were all over the place. And we collected a few that we thought, okay, these are really green. Maybe they're jade. Maybe they're not, but we're going to consider that. And we had so many rocks. And then, of course, this little bit of sand and everything, it all kind of adds up. So the weight of our luggage was so much heavier than when we traveled to California. We thought, okay, we might have to pay extra to get this stuff home. And I said, I don't care. I'm taking this bag of rocks and this sand with me.
Yeah.
And I mean, I have no idea. We have since watched a show where there are these people that actually mine jade on their property, and they have these people from China that come over to inspect it and tell you if it's good or if it's not. And apparently, I mean, there are rocks that contain jade, but they're really kind of low quality and that sort of thing. So I don't know. We haven't had it tested, but it might be, it might not. But it's a memory, and the way you described that green sand with the blue water and how spectacular, just seeing that. And I can totally imagine why you'd want to capture just a tiny bit of that to bring home. And I don't know anybody who goes to the beach that doesn't take a shell or something as a memento. I too have bagfuls of shells that I've collected here at our beach. They seem boundless. They reappear every morning. There seems to be more, so you don't think I'm doing something to the environment. And like I said, there aren't any signs saying do not remove any shells. I remember in Costa Rica, close to the beach you were describing in Manuel Antonio, there were signs saying do not take shells, do not take wood, or anything. They wanted to preserve it. It's a national park place, so I can understand. We have some beaches that have really nice driftwood. There are signs saying do not take this driftwood, because I could see people just, like you said, going in and taking it and selling it, commercializing the whole thing. And that's not what we want when we're collecting things, right? We just want that memory.
Yeah. It's interesting because, like you say about driftwood, people make picture frames or mirror frames out of driftwood, and it's like, you could find any project you want off of Pinterest, and it will tell you collect all these different kinds of shells, and I think it leads to so many interesting and deeper questions about the intention of something. I remember I can't remember what I was looking at, but I saw in an interior design blog or something, part of a wall had these razor clam shells stacked, and it must have been hundreds and hundreds of clam shells. So somebody collected all of those razor clam shells and organized them in a certain way in this art installation in this wall as just part of a design element. And at that point, it's art, but it is sort of, a collecting of free materials that are not free, is it yours, is it not? It leads to many more complicated questions. I don't know. For me, it all started in Bermuda, where I saw in the gift shops that they were selling it, and I thought, why should I buy it? I'm just going to take a little bit. So, for better or worse.
Exactly. Yeah. And how do you know that I look at some of those gift shops and the shells and things, and I think, are those really shells from here, or are they manufactured to really look like shells? I mean, all sorts of things go through my mind. We have a beach on the Gulf Coast where sand dollars are really plentiful, and so you do see little bags of sand dollars in the gift shops. And we've been diving on the coast where we've seen them still alive in the sand and all of that. And we kind of pick one up and look at it. You really don't want to disturb sand dollars or starfish or anything like that when they're alive, because we get in the way of their ecosystem, however that is. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that are collected, and it does kind of bring up that idea. I suppose the lesson in it is when we go to collect something off the beach, what is our intention, really? And is it to preserve a memory? And do we need a bag full of shells, or can we just have a handful that in that we're not going to sell it or make a profit from it or something? I don't know. I don't want to disparage anybody that creates art from these things. I guess I'm just in my mind thinking, okay, if there's not a sign, don't take this.
Right. It's interesting about the sand collection too, because, it just started, like I said, as this thing of here's some pink sand from Bermuda. And it's been so many years that I've been traveling and visiting beaches and collecting different types of sand that I start to become so interested in all the inner workings. Like the pink sand beaches in Bermuda are pink because there's like a single-celled organism that lives under the coral that's red, and it gets churned up and then kind of mixed in with the white sand that's on the beach, and that's why it appears pink. And it's interesting to think about like all these different layers, but the sand, to me, it's like it's so specific to the beach that it really immediately makes me think of being there. Like in Costa Rica, Playa Conchal, it's a very fancy beach with a very exclusive resort, and we were staying in this tiny beach town just up the coast that like we stayed at this really cheap motel that was $29 a night that didn't even have air conditioning. And we woke up on a gorgeous beach, but this was not the fancy beach. And then you walk down the coast and you come around the bend and the whole beach is glistening with shells. And I was there more than a decade ago, and I can remember it vividly because of that sand. And if I look at the little bottle of sand, I can remember that. And I just think that is what I really love about collecting sand. And recently we had the opportunity to go to St. John, and my daughter told a random stranger on the beach that I needed to take sand from this beach because I take sand from every beach. And she started telling this person about my collection. She's 5, and she had so much to say about it. And it just thought, like, it takes on such a new meaning at that point. It's special to her. It's special to me. It shows like this shared history and where we've traveled together. And and then I get very sentimental. I wonder, like, will she take sand from beaches that I'm not there with her, or that won't be her thing? And either one is fine, but I'll remember when I'm already back at the car in the parking lot, oh, I didn't take sand from this beach. And I'll dig around my car to see, like, do I have a little plastic bag or an envelope or a tissue, or do I have something? And then I come home with sand wrapped in the strangest little configurations of things, because I didn't think of it at the time. I didn't think of it in advance, but it is still so important to me to make sure I take a little bit of sand, just a tiny bit, just, an ounce or so, a little keepsake.
Just a tiny bottle of magic. Jenny, thank you so much for telling that story. I think it means a lot to the people who will be listening, because we all want a piece of the beach. That's one of the reasons I created this podcast in the first place, because I wanted to, if you can't get to the beach, I want to bring the beach to you. And so many of us collect quirky things. So I don't think you're alone in that regard. I kind of want to switch gears since we're talking. You live in Brooklyn now, right? But you still have a connection to the beach.
Yeah, I live in Brooklyn with my husband and my kids, and we have been lucky enough to be able to have a second place outside of Brooklyn that we can sort of escape. And for many, many years, we were looking, the practical thing from here is to sort of go north or west and do, a lake house or a house in the Hudson Valley. And it will be like a 4 seasons place that you can, if it's winter, you might go skiing. And if it's summer, you might, go hiking. And we were looking and looking and looking, and nothing ever felt right. And in the meantime, once a year in the summer, we would go out to the North Fork of Long Island, which is like, if you're not familiar, Long Island stretches out and it forks, and the south is like the Hamptons, where you hear about, like, it's on the Atlantic Ocean. And then the North Fork is on the Long Island Sound, south of Connecticut. And it's just beautiful, and it's farm country, and there's a lot of vineyards, and it's very quiet, and it's nothing like the Hamptons, and we love it out there. And we went every summer, and we enjoyed it so much. And then we would come back, and then we would look upstate and all around for, a getaway, a weekend house, a special place, an investment property. And we just could not settle on anything upstate because we are beach people. We love the beach. And so finally, when the pandemic hit, we were lucky enough to get out to the North Fork, and we got a little place that we escape to every chance we possibly can. And even if we can get there for 24 hours, we go, and we push our kids to go. And it's just, there is just nothing like when the sun is setting over the water in the Long Island Sound and you're listening to the waves. We love it out there. And the funny thing is, the beach is very rocky. There's almost no sand. It's a rocky beach. So we collect rocks now. But it's beautiful out there. And it absolutely saved our sanity during the lockdown period, and being able to just like get some fresh air, take a long walk on the beach. And I started this habit of taking a little video. I call it 10 seconds of Zen. And I would just like take a video of the waves crashing as the sun is setting. And if I'm in Brooklyn during the week, or I'm feeling stressed, or I'm just longing for the beach, I just watch that 10-second video and it really changes the mood. I mean, I'm sure you know, but it's just a very quick reset. And
Absolutely. I've been taking longer videos at the beach of just the waves coming in and the sound, and typically at the sunrise, because that's when I'm out there most days, and putting it up on my social media. And I'll just say, stop for a minute, take a breath and watch this. And so many people have said, oh my gosh, I really needed that today, or I really look forward to seeing those images or those videos, because like you said, life is stressful. We get caught up in the things, and sometimes we're not even breathing. We're just going. And if you take a moment and think, oh gosh, it would be great to be to the beach, you can just pull up that video. I love that. 10 seconds of Zen.
I mean, the longer videos are incredible too. And I was thinking of you because not too far from where our place is, there's a very old motel that's been renovated and made much more upscale. It's been there since the 1930s. It's called the Soundview Inn, and it got a total makeover. It's very fancy now. And they started offering like sound baths on the beach at sunset. And I was thinking of you because that idea of a sound bath is really just transformative.
Yeah. Have you been to one?
I haven't been to one yet. I haven't been.
Oh,
Gotta go.
Oh, you need to do that. You need to bring the kids too. I think they might enjoy it for a little bit. I know sometimes it's hard for them to stay still. But the first sound bath that I led on the beach here, one of the participants brought 3 of her children, and they were like 9 years old, 10 years old. And they were super into it. They wanted to know everything about the bowls and how do you play them, and the shanty bells that I had. And I told one of them, I said, well, when I give you the signal, if you want, you can ring the bells and walk around. Oh, can I? And for the most part, they were still, they sat there, they lay down and listened. And then they got up and went hunting for shells. And when it was over, one of them came running up to me. Look what I brought you. They were so excited to show me this little mini collection that they were inspired to pick up and bring back. So there, once again, there's that, bringing a little piece of the beach.
It's so amazing to me how much you can choose. Even you can choose to collect at the beach. Like, there's such a culture of beach combing and, what you actively search for and find at the beach. And then in our neighborhood, there are so many people that have old fishing buoys hanging from their trees. And I am determined to find one. I've never found a buoy. I found a piece of one once, like it must have been broken up, but I've never found a buoy. But one time, it was in the middle of pandemic craziness. It was a really stressful time. And I just said, let us walk to the beach and just take 10 minutes on the beach. And we went to a different beach than our usual beach. And it's about maybe 70 rickety old steps down to the beach, wooden steps all pushed together. And the kids complain about it, but they go down and up the steps. We get to the bottom, and then, it's pretty secluded there and you can see everywhere. So I let everyone just kind of go in every direction. And I'm walking along, and as you can tell about me, I am always looking for things on the beach. And it's mostly rocky, and I see in the distance a pink circle of something. And I was like, what could that possibly be? And I went over, and it looked like maybe there had been a bonfire last night, but maybe it was Duralogs or something that had a chemical to it, because the whole area was all pink around. And then there was some metal. So I look, what is it? And it was a little silver dog tag that had etched into it in handwriting, authentic self. And I looked around and I thought, did somebody drop this? Like, I don't think they dropped it because it's very clearly in the middle of this bonfire circle. So then I started thinking, like, maybe was there some kind of ceremony, some like, what happened? What happened here in this beach last night that like somebody needed to find their authentic self, but then they left it behind, like they don't have it with them. So it's just this really interesting moment to imagine how somebody else experienced this part of the beach last night, or maybe it wasn't last night, maybe it was last week and it just didn't wash away. It was like this really funny.
Yeah, maybe they lost it there. Maybe they intended to leave it there. I speak about how I lost my iPhone to the ocean. So there are some times where we lose things at the beach. Well, my losing my phone was kind of traumatic for me because everything, all my photographs and everything were on that phone.
It's a terrible feeling.
Yeah, it was just kind of embarrassing that I was that tied to my phone, but it was because it was what I used to connect myself to the beach, taking those photographs and recording the sounds and all that. So there's something to being to the lost and the found.
Yeah.
So did you leave it there and just place it back where you found it, or did you take that too?
I took it because I did sort of believe it was for me. It was like this moment where, I had two little kids. They were both doing Zoom school from home because we had just recently locked down from COVID, and I was feeling stressed and overwhelmed. And I had reached a point where I took us all to the beach for a walk because we just needed something. Mm-hmm. And then I felt like it was a sign for me because this whole experience is all part of life, whatever.
Right. And that you found that on the beach where you had gone because you needed some peace and quiet and reduce some stress. So you found it there rather than on the sidewalk outside of your house in the city. It wouldn't really, probably wouldn't have been as significant as, you probably wouldn't have been looking for something like that anyway, but I can definitely see that as a sign. I think I probably would have taken it too. I would have seen it as a sign that I'm supposed to be here. This is me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that like maybe it's a little too far of a stretch, but for me, it's just like all of the various individual moments lead to this connecting thing. Like we don't have a Hudson Valley house where we go on hikes. We have a beach house, which is way less practical, even though we're practical people. We go out there even in the off season, even when it's so cold, because we just have to use it. We just have to be on the beach. And, and I'm someone who finds little tiny things in the sand all the time. And I don't know. It felt like a connection to me. And
Absolutely.
I had to have it.
Absolutely. Well, and that's definitely, I think, how the beach connects all of us. There's always something that we can relate to, that we enjoy, and that you were thinking about a property or something as something you could enjoy, but also an investment. And you're saying, well, it's not practical. Really, it is an investment because think of you're investing in these experiences that, your kids will remember, oh, Mom made us walk down and up these 70 steps and all that stuff. Who knows what your daughter is going to be doing. Like you said, she may be carrying on the tradition of collecting all these things. And that's a memory of you and of her. And that's, connecting. Not to say that you wouldn't have invested in memories and all of that in a house upstate, but it just seems like this whole experience experiences that you're creating are so much more valuable, and that you can consider I would consider that a very good investment.
That is a really good point, and I appreciate you saying so. It's true. It's a different type of investment in self and mental health,
Exactly.
for sure.
Self-care and memories and all that we think about with the beach.
It's funny you just said that, and I remembered that my daughter got a splinter on the way up. So she calls that beach the one where I got the splinter. She got a splinter in her hand from the railing on the way up.
Oh,
very traumatic for her.
yeah. It's funny, the things that we remember when we were children, and you look back on that probably and laugh about it.
Yeah. When you mentioned that when you lost your phone, for some reason I flashed on when I was a kid. One summer, my mom tried to get us to all wear water shoes in the water. And we were like, no, we've never had to wear water shoes before. No. But she got us all water shoes and we had to wear them. I don't know. Looking back, I'm sure it must have been like there was something bad in the beach that year or something. Something in the water, or some broken shells or glass. I don't know what it could have been, but there must have been something. But the first day, I took my water shoes and I went swimming the usual way with my boogie board and the whole thing. And one of my shoes slipped off and I lost it forever. It's gone. I don't know. I must have been like 7 or 8 years old and I lost this water shoe. And for some reason, I guess because we're talking about the beach, when you said how you lost your phone, I immediately remembered the feeling of that shoe slipping off and I just lost it forever. I'm going to get in trouble for this. Like, I don't know what I was thinking, and I don't know why all these years later, you talking about losing your phone made me immediately think of that, but it's so funny.
Well, I'm glad that you're remembering it and with a sense of humor and joy and not a sad memory, because that is one thing I do strive to do with the podcast, is when I'm telling stories or when anybody's telling a story, that you be transported to a memory that they have or an experience they want to have, or once again, bringing that connection around. Yeah. Well, Jenny, I really, really appreciate you coming on and sharing all this with me. I love talking to you.
Thank you so much for having me. And it's just been so wonderful to listen to your podcast and think about all these connections spanning my whole life, where I didn't quite realize my personal connection to the beach until I started thinking about all these various experiences that just, they seem like disconnected life experiences, but I think it is that pull of the beach, that need for that calm and that rejuvenating connection.
Absolutely. Well, I think we'll end it here. Thank you for bringing your collection to us.
Thank you so much, Paige.
Yeah. The beach is speaking. Are you listening? I'm so happy that Jenny agreed to share her story of the cursed sand with us. Sometimes a curse can actually be a blessing. And although neither of us expected that our conversation would take such an existential turn, it did bring up some interesting questions that I'm sure the beach has been asking me, but I guess I haven't been paying much attention to until now. Is there a greater meaning to what we find on the beach? And what do we choose to keep? Share this episode with another beach lover and tune in to the next one to hear some of my memorable lost and found at the beach stories and what the beach has to say about it. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Beach Speaks. If you liked what you heard, share the podcast with another beach lover. And speaking of sharing, I want to know how the beach is speaking to you. To record a message, just go to my website, thebeachspeaks.com, click the voicemail button, it's super easy, and I'll play it on the show. And if more beach is what you crave, visit thebeachspeaks.com or follow The Beach Speaks on Facebook and Instagram, where I post all my gorgeous sunrise photos and videos. It's another way for you to reconnect with the beach return to your soul, and reimagine your life. The beach is speaking. Are you listening?